28th of April 2019 were voted upon and accepted by the PCC. So there's no vote needed on those. First of all, I'm sure if anyone's had a look at them, I'm sure you've all looked at these all online and inwardly digested, and I'm sure there's matters arising. I think they're all covered by the PCC, so I think that's fine. Similarly, the annual reports, there are some more copies of these at the back of the church if you didn't manage to download them or read them online. It's a shame that, of course, they seem very much out of date in that they were written ready for the APCM to happen in March, April time, but it was on about 2019 anyway, so they are still very much relevant. If you haven't managed to get hold to see those, please help yourself to one of those on the back. Safeguarding. Fred.
Hello. Safeguarding. First of all, a sincere thank you to Ruth Saunders, who is our safeguarding officer. And in 2019, we actually went through a process of quality assurance through a SQP1, that's Simple Quality Protects. This is an inspection of our safeguarding system, which we passed back end of 2019, and that's down to Ruth's hard work. One of the follow-ups to that was for everybody involved with vulnerable people, young and old, to go through a training. Many of us have done that training, including myself, but there are quite a few that have not yet completed the training. And unfortunately, due to the restrictions due to COVID, of course, we've not been able to complete the training. So although we passed our SQP1 2019, there's still a few to complete training, but that's quite understandable. So to reassure you, we are compliant, we have passed our certification, and we have signed documentation posted with our safeguarding procedures signed off by PCC. So we're up to date with just a few people needing the training. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Hazel, you're going to give us an update on the Deanery Synod proceedings.
Deanery Synod Report 2019 to 2020. Deanery Synod meets 3 times a year at different churches in the diocese. At each meeting there is a welcome, treasurer's report, an update of the work of the host church, and a presentation by visiting speakers. 26th of June 2019 at St Mary's Church, Barkham. This was an open meeting for Lewes and Seaford Deanery. We discussed in small groups what has most encouraged us in the life of our churches. Bishop Richard then spoke about some of the challenges we faced in the diocese. Later he introduced the next phase of the strategy, the overall theme being more. More open, more converted, more generous, more engaged. Discussions followed about underrepresented groups from our communities, and the meeting ended with Compline. 24th of October 2019 at St Peter's Church, Blatchington. Following the necessary reports and strategies, a presentation was given by Anna Glenton, chaplain at Her Majesty's Prison, Lewes. Discussion followed about the Welcome Directory, which is a resettlement resource for prison chaplains. The aim is to build strong links with faith communities in order to serve people coming out of prison. This would be a national database of welcoming and supportive faith communities across the country. Dates for meetings in 2020: Tuesday 17th of March, Wednesday 24th of June, Thursday 22nd of October. And submission of ideas for possible themes and presentations were invited. The Rural Dean was congratulated on her recent appointment as an honorary canon of Chichester Cathedral. 17th of March 2020. This was cancelled due to COVID. Dates for further meetings need to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel. Right, the PCC proceedings and general parish activities.
The trustees' annual report was available online before and after the meeting. The PCC was commissioned in May 2019 and met for 4 meetings during that year: May the 14th, July the 2nd, September the 24th, November the 12th, and 2 meetings in 2020, 14th of January and March the 20th. The minutes are available on request. The Standing Committee met 5 times during 219 ahead of the PCC meetings.
Thank you, Caroline. Right, and now the one you've all been waiting for, the Statement of Financial Activities and Balance Sheet, Stephen.
Can you hear me all right at the back? You okay, Heather? Thank you. Good. I'm Stephen Gauntlet. I haven't got a face mask which says Parish Treasurer on it, but I'm sure it'll catch on in due course. James the Vicar, Stephen the Treasurer. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the final annual audited accounts for 2019. They were and have been approved by the Parochial Church Council, and they're here today for you to receive them. The way we're going to do it is I'm largely going to talk to page 10 of the annual report, if you've got one with you. I'm not going to go through it slavishly, nor am I going to go through every line of the accounts, but there are some bits in there which are quite important, and I'll draw your attention to them as we go through. There are 3 key numbers page numbers in the report. Page 10, which is where I'm going to begin. Behind you on the screen, as a sort of anchor, is something called the Statement of Financial Activities. That's found on page 15. It's the accountant's version of what you find on page 10. It's kind of written in language that I've learned to love over the last few years. The first thing to say is that second thing to say is that in addition to the SOFA, as it's known, Statement of Financial Activities, from pages 22 to 27, you also have the income and expenditure set out in much more detail. Now, I don't particularly intend to refer to that, but I'm certainly happy, if you have questions on it, to take them. Because what happens really is that all of that is swept up into the Statement of Financial Activities and into the balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet only represents a photograph. It's just a snapshot in time, which is important to look at our overall health, but it's not something you work off all the time, whereas we produce a Statement of Financial Activities for the Parochial Church Council each quarter as a minimum, so you can track where you are against the budget. Now, a couple of other things to say. Preparation of accounts is not entirely straightforward. If you've been before, you may have heard me say this. Because we are quite a large, financially large parish, our turnover is approaching $250,000, and therefore it means that we are subject to what's called accruals accounting. By that I mean that you account for things when they happen rather than paying a bill or being paid. and then counting it. Our software that runs our accounting is actually not an accrual system. It's a receipts and payments system. It took me a while to work that out, because I'm not an accountant, and it meant that every year end I would end up with stuff that I didn't quite understand, and I was eventually rescued by the auditor. I've got the hang of it now, and one piece of good news is that I measure how we're doing by the length of time the auditor spends physically here looking at the books. The first year it was a day and a half. It's got down to 2 hours now, so I think we're getting there. Before I say any more, and I don't know whether she's watching, I also want to say a big thank you to Anna Owen, who is our bookkeeper. She is really very good indeed, and I couldn't do this without her. Now, let's talk about some of the things on page 10. When the budget for 2019 was set, the PCC approved a deficit budget. In other words, that we would make a loss. And that loss was going to be £37,000. When it came to it, the SOFA, and this is what you'll see on page 15, the SOFA says we made a loss of 57,876. But that was because we consciously decided to take money from the reserves and from a legacy for specific reasons. And there's nothing in accounting to stop you doing that. So there were planned additions, but they weren't in the original budget, so we have to deduct them. So we actually came in with a slightly lower actual loss, one of 34,000 rather than one of 37. So I've taken out the dollar spending, which was 10,000, towards something, I can never be sure which country it's in. I think it's certainly in Southeast Asia, Malip, Rusi, and we also consciously spent money planned on the children, youth and families work. So if that's where we started from with the budget, it does mean that we should look at what we have in our reserves. And I'm talking about liquid reserves, money in the bath, if you like water, where you can turn on a tap. So your liquid reserves are not the same as what we've got in our properties. We've got St Luke's House, we've got 35% of 2 Benenden Close, and we've got the church offices. That takes us up into, £800,000 worth of actual assets, but we can't use them. So at the end of 2019, we had 289,000 in get-atable money, real money, of which 200,000 was due totally to 2 legacies from the same family, from the Dolan legacy. So that is a very significant part of those liquid funds. We've actually, in 2020, had another extremely generous legacy of 30,000, which does improve our position. But again, when you think about legacies, sometimes the donor puts conditions on them. In the case of the 200,000, and in the case of the generous legacy left by the Pawson family, that 30,000 legacy, neither of them have any limitations on how you can spend them. But it is not usual to spend legacy funding on operating costs. And in fact, the PCC made a decision with the Dolan legacy to try and think into their way of thinking as to how they might have wished it to have been spent. And there is a plan for how it should be spent. And indeed, this year in 2020, we have taken 20% of that legacy to go towards funding our children, youth and families work. And there are other 10% and 20% of things that will be taken as and when the time is right from those legacies. But it doesn't take too much thought to realise that if you made a loss of 34,000 operating loss in 2019, our budget for this year, without COVID, was a 41,000 loss. And if you do it again in 2021, you've effectively run out of normal money. You start to bump into legacy funding. Now, I know where that is, and that therefore it won't happen like that because that is ring-fenced and it's restricted funding. But nevertheless, the PCC is acutely conscious that we need to find some answers to these continuing deficits. It is not that we are a profligate parish. I've been struck how careful people are before they spend. And in previous jobs where perhaps I've had responsibility for quite a lot of money, I've got nervous about that sort of thing and I'm on the lookout for it. But it is not the case here. We are not spending money like water. What has happened is that our income has suffered since 2016, 2017. We lost, through death or moving away, some extremely generous regular donors, and they haven't entirely been replaced. I'll come back to that in a minute, but simply to say that obviously this year, to give you some context about this year, because you're probably wondering what's happening in terms of the deficit, we are budgeted for a 41,000 deficit. That was without COVID. The way we've managed it, or trying to manage it, is we looked at the way we were going in May, June, July and August, and compared it to 2019. And what we saw in the first 2 months was a loss of about £4,000 a month on top of any other losses. Now that's not to be unexpected. I mean, the income from letting the halls is significant. That's not there. Just one example. And the giving, of course, particularly envelopes, took what I think is a temporary hit because it's coming back. And if you look at August, we're more or less level comparing 2019, 2020. We asked the diocese if they would help us manage this, and we offered to say that we'll trim our cloth a bit to try and make sure that the 4,000 we're anticipating not having, we deal with internally. Could we please have a holiday from paying all of our parish ministry contribution, which is about £11,000 a month, £133 a year, £133,000 a year. They agreed to that, and so we're now paying £9,000 a month rather than 11. There is an unanswered question, which is not in my gift to answer, and will need to come to the PCC, and that is it really a holiday, or should we, in fact, at some time look to honouring the pledge we made at the beginning of the year to pay our full parish ministry contribution? It's worth just saying here, and I won't dwell on this, that parishes have vary tremendously in their ability to pay their contribution to the diocese. There are some, not a million miles down the coast from here, who can pay nowhere near what they, in theory, should pay to the diocese. So there is a degree of help going on, backwards and forwards, Hastings and along the coast, from other parishes that can do this. It's not a huge impact, but it's there. And so if we don't meet our pledge, then it's actually harder to know what's happening about some of these other places who do their very best but simply can't. So I think my message really is that our direction of travel, which is negative budgets cannot continue, otherwise we will simply hit a wall. Now, I remember saying this about 4 years ago, and people have tried really hard, and it's been really heartening in the period of close down, the gifts that have come in, which is why I think August is now back up roughly level again. People have been very generous indeed, so thank you for that. I suppose it comes back really to how much we as a PCC can look at the options we've got other than encouraging or finding other ways of increasing income. Now, that's my judgment. There may be other views. I think that's all I probably need to say. I think I've covered the bulk of what's written on page 10, and page 10 is reflected mathematically, if you like, on the statement of financial activities, and then it's in detail from page 22 to 27. I wonder if that's caused anybody, are there questions? And I don't know if we've got any scope for online questions, but Charlie.
I was to make a comment, if I may.
Yeah.
First of all, to congratulate you on such detailed accounts. The second is to draw together a number of strands that I think are important here, particularly regarding the safeguarding of the funding of our children and family workers' job, because we had two benefit first.
Yep.
For which we originally retained 1/3 of the rental stream.
Yep.
But as the note says on page 7, in 2019, the diocese went without their share. And so for the full year, the accounts show £16,000 rental stream coming into the account, which the PCC has put towards the funding of the CFM.
Yep.
And that is ongoing.
Yep.
But the arrangement was, therefore, in that sense, the diocese is supposed to give us the 45,000 over 3 years, that grant that kick-started the job. I think is now continuing to help us in this important area of industry. But in a sense, because the PCC has decided to put the rental stream towards supporting that role, I think that should be almost treated as a restricted fund rather than free income to be used. But we do have a responsibility now, which does need, I believe, to be cleared up with the diocese. Because we now effectively control the management, the letting and the repair of the property, there is a degree of still greyness about that arrangement. I was talking to Tony Miller, who is the front man for the parish with the diocese. There is still a greyness there, and I think that does need to be cleared up. The Archdeacon is perfectly clear on the arrangement and says, as it cannot reflect the agreement. I think the PCC does need to clarify whether it needs to make provision for long-term investments in bed and clothes, as we do with the Premier arrangements, or whether the diocese will continue to hold on to that responsibility and relieve us so that in fact almost the full benefit of the rental stream comes to this parish for the purposes.
Yes, you make a very important point. The point being that the whole of the rental, 100% of Two Benedictine Close, which is 65% owned by the diocese. The Archdeacon generously said that all of that should come here for specifically for the funding of children, youth and families work. Now that isn't, I haven't got anything in writing about that, so it's probably something we should come back to as I think it's a very good reminder. Just to reassure you, on the accounts we have 3 categories. We have unrestricted funds, but within unrestricted we have free funds and designated funds. The children and families' income goes into designated, because restricted is a more specific, I don't know if it's a legal term or not, but it certainly means what it says. And it's got very solid walls around it. You can't just use it for anything. Whereas designated, we designate what it's there for. And so we have designated 2 Benedictine Close. But it does raise a question about ongoing maintenance. It's not huge, but all of us know that we've got bills to pay on houses. And I was at a presentation very recently where the diocese is looking at its own budget, given COVID, and they have made a conscious decision to step back from some of the parsonage maintenance for next year to try and make sure they limit the increase they're asking parishes to help them with to 0.63%. That's what it works out at. It normally is around 2.5–3%. So they're looking very seriously at the way they manage things too. Thank you very, very much for that comment. Questions? Other questions? No? I'm very pleased if you think of things after the meeting. Just leave a note for me somewhere or email me. I'm very happy to answer any questions you've got. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Right, Fred will now talk a bit about fabric.
Thank you very much, Stephen. As you'll appreciate, money is tight, but we do have ongoing responsibilities in terms of maintaining our buildings. In 2019, we actually just did the minimum, really. We still spent a lot by normal standards, but by our standards, it was just keeping things ticking over. So we had the quinquennial in St Leonard's. If you read the trustees' report, there's a section on buildings and fabric. You will see the notes. And we completed that back in March, and we followed up with the urgent repairs. But there are some repairs we've not continued with, held in abeyance, if you like. The main one being the tower repair. And the tower roof and repairs are significant here in this building, something like 20,000. We have had some fundraising in the meantime. We've gotten, I think, over half the money now to do the tower repair. And that will proceed very soon. We can't leave it much longer, to be honest. So I'd imagine in the springtime, when the weather improves, we will have to get on with that repair. And that's going to be in around 20,000. We are applying for grant money as well from historic, I can't remember the exact name, but the Sussex Historic Churches Trust, to supplement our own fundraising. It's obviously it's the oldest part of the church here, 950 years old, the tower part of the building here, and it is a major structural fault in the kingpin of the roof, so that has got to be repaired soon. But it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't done in 2019. We just held it in abeyance. We did do a significant amount of insulation in St Luke's Church, thanks to the Dollin legacy, which has improved the heating conditions in St Luke's dramatically. It's an unusual building, and I don't know if you understand, the arch in St Luke's is made of fiberglass. St Luke's is the same age as me, 35. The inside of the arches in the roof there, it's actually like the inside of a hull of a ship. It's a fiberglass arch, and it hangs from the structure of the building. And we put in behind there, we put up some insulation. And it didn't cost a huge amount, and it's made a big difference in the heating of St Luke's. So that was the main work at St Luke's in 2019. But we do have lots of ongoing maintenance to do, and not least we have, sadly, the vandalised window in the children's corner here to repair. We'll partly get that done with insurance, but it's not straightforward. We've got the windows over here, which are sadly needing some work, and that's some thousands. And we have the sound and vision system here, which is on its last legs a little bit. You may have noticed the quality of our sound in some of the broadcasts has been suspect. We have to find a way forward with this. We can't just do it all in one go. It's a lot of money. So there's many things we're looking at, but suffice to say, we are getting on with it. We're keeping up to date with it, and we will have to probably have some more fundraising in the new year for certain projects that we might need to fulfill. Our legacy money, some of it is allocated towards some fabric work, but much of it is allocated towards more, I don't know what the word is, but things like mission, which was actually more important, really. So, you know, we've got to be careful how we balance our use of mission, legacy funding. And the PCC, as Stephen said, took a decision to split the dollar legacy into various areas, including 10% on mission work. It's very important we don't use our legacy funding just to fix things in the church, but to reach out to people. So although we may have a couple $100,000 in the bank, as it were, in terms of legacy, it's not to be spent on fixing the drains. We must reach out to people with that money. So some of it will go to valuable work in the church, but we will need to fundraise for some other fabric work as we go through the next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. And thank you, Fred, for all the work you do with the fabric, and obviously Tony as well, and we've got various other people who often do little jobs for us round about the church that saves us money and helps preserve the building. Brilliant. If you want to know anything else about any other of the groups or the ministries, the other things that we happen in the church, to save time today, we're not having any more actual verbal reports. It's in here. It's a good read. Please read it. Right, now's the time for you to participate. We're on to the elections. As most of you know, Bob Carrington has stepped down as church warden. I don't know how many years he did it. A good many years, but... is that all? Oh, no time at all. Anyway, and he still has been very much, during this time, on the other end of the phone, Zooming meetings and things like that. Anyway, we are very lucky in that Fred has been, is happy to stand again. And we have a new church warden in, well, we might have, if you vote her in. We have a new church warden in, Lisa has prepared to stand. Lisa, could you stand up? I'm sure people do know you, but in case you don't know Lisa, this is Lisa, and she is prepared to take on the job as church warden, which is absolutely brilliant. I have these people, Lisa has been nominated by Bob and seconded by Fred. You've really stitched up there, weren't you? Fred has been nominated by Lisa and seconded by Sue Top. Would you like to show in the vote whether you agree with these people being your new church wardens? A double hand. Yeah, you can. Thank you very much. It's a lot of hard work. They're going to be well, Fred does an awful lot. And I'm sure that Lisa's going to be sharing the burden with him, which is absolutely fantastic. Deputy wardens. Is you now?
Deputy wardens.
Yep.
I'll just search them out. So, deputy wardens are nominated by PCC. You don't have to vote on them, but it's just some information for you. We had, in 2019, we had 4 deputy wardens. Janet Kent, you see, also our vice chair, PCC. David Elliott, who is stepping down. And then we had Jackie Baker and Carolyn Plowman up at St Luke's. Now, the situation has changed. Jackie Baker has resigned from her position in the last couple of days due to family circumstances. And Carolyn is planning to leave the area to go to the family in Norfolk in the next months. So we have David Elliott stepped down, Jackie Baker's resigned, and Carolyn's moving on soon. But the good news is Paul Waller has kindly offered to step in to David Elliott's position here at St Leonard's. Paul, is Paul about? Do you want to stand up, Paul? This is Paul.
He did a very good job this morning.
He had his first morning this morning. It was a training session. But thank you so much, Paul, for that. And up at St Luke's, Carolyn will carry on for a few months. And just yesterday, God spoke to Tony Gubbins, who used to be the warden up there in previous times. And he called me and he said, I hear Carolyn might be leaving. He didn't know anything about Jackie resigning. And he said, could I step in again? Because I don't know if you know Tony's position, but his wife, Pam, is now in a care home. He had to resign to look after her a couple of years ago. And now she's in a care home. And he really wants to do more again. So he rang me up yesterday and said, can I step back in? I said, Tony, absolutely. And it made my day. So Tony Gubbins is stepping back into the warden role at St Luke's. And as Caroline leaves, we hope to find someone else to support Tony up there. So we are okay. We now have, as deputy wardens, Janet still there, Paul Waller, Tony Gubbins is back, and Caroline for a short time. So that's where we are with the deputies. So it's actually not as bad news as it was 2 days ago, thanks to Tony.
Thank you, Fred. PCC, do we have any list up on the screen or what is PCC? You should be able to see a list up on the screen. Some people have come to the end of their time at PCC. A big thank you to all those people who have put so much time and effort in the last few years. We shall miss you. And we have one person who is prepared to join us on the PCC, and that is Bob Carrington. He thought he was escaping. Who Fred has proposed and I have seconded.
He doesn't know it.
He doesn't know. He did say he was happy to join the PCC and share his vast experience. So. Is there anybody else who wishes to stand for the PCC? Okay, that's fine. We can always co-opt if we need later on.
Yeah, by the way, that's not their ages after their names. That's the year they start. And normally a PCC member does 3 years. So anybody with a 17 is stepping down.
Well, you will notice that Stephen Gilbert is up there as a 17, but
that doesn't count.
He will not be, as treasurer, he cannot leave. That's not a problem.
It's not allowed.
No. So would you just like to show whether you agree about Bob Carrington joining the PCC? Could I have a vote, please? Thank you. Excellent. We also have Deanery Synod people.
I think they are there. Yes.
They're there? Right, okay. And they're still carrying on, so that's not a problem. Sides people. List going up for the sides people? No? Oh, wait. It is very good. A big thank you from my point of view to all the sides people, team leaders, and the sides people who felt they've been able to come and back and help during the services since we reopened, and other people who have stepped in who didn't realise they were going to have a job until they walked in and I collared them. So thank you very much for all the people that have ticked lists, clicked clickers, sanitised, and generally been very helpful helping people get sorted. So we need to approve these people as your sides people. Could I have somebody who would like to propose that we accept this list? David. A seconder, please. Charlie. Those in favour? Thank you. And I'm sure that if any of you feel that you would like to help out and become a sides person, Bob Gearing would be very happy to hear from you. Thank you. Right, we have another vote. We have to appoint our independent examiner. And the proposal is to appoint Chariot House Limited as independent examiner. These are people we've used the last few years. Stephen's very happy with them. So, could I have a proposer for that, please? Oh, Stephen. And then we've got Paul. Right. Those in favour of having these people? They seem to be doing a good job. That's all in favour. Thank you very much. Right, and now this is the bit you really have all been waiting for, because I'm going to pass you on over to James.
Thank you so much for coming out in this blustery weather. I'm hugely impressed and flattered that you've come to hear Stephen unpack the accounts. Stefan, were you going to pop up at this point? Yeah, let's just do it now. Oh, I see, I need to come down. Okay, that's fine, I can do that. This is Stefan. Yeah, you go first.
Oh, okay.
My speech is longer.
Okay.
You hope.
Hello, I'm Stefan. I'm sure I've met almost all of you at some point, and you've probably seen me bouncing up and down in videos doing some dances to get you moving. If I haven't seen you yet, I am the Children, Youth and Family Worker for the church, and anything children-wise would be down to me, I guess. Just want to say it's a great opportunity to see everyone together since the lockdown, obviously, but also to be part of the family here and to really grow with all of you guys. But anything with regards to children, youth, and family work, if you have any questions at all, feel free to always grab me and bend my ear, or I'll bend your ear. Either one.
What happened yesterday?
Yesterday, we had our first messy church back in here, and it was in the actual church rather than in the hall. We had 47 people that came to it. We had, I think, 8 different tables organised, and each family had their own table here. So we're looking to make sure that we get back on track and stay back on track. Government being nice to us and all. But the important thing is we had 47 family members here. So that was their parents and or the children that was here. And it was absolutely brilliant. They weren't allowed to sing, but they were allowed to get up and jump about and dance around, which they obviously loved, and the craft packs, and just to all the team that supported throughout this difficult time, since I've been here anyway, from the COVID point of view. Just a massive thank you. You know, the deliveries, the messy church packs, the dancing, the everything. The online Zoom meetings with the youth group that we've somehow got together and still kept them going. It's been great. So yeah, thank you very much.
If there was anything that we could be doing to support you, what would that be?
To support me, be up for doing some stuff. That would be really good. Yeah, if there's some things that we might call for your help with as a church generally. If you don't know how to do it, it's okay, because if it's something that needs to be done and you think that you could do it, even though you don't have the skills right now, we'll look at training and advising and helping you through it, rather than me going, I need another children worker to come along and help us lead this session. Who's going to do it? And then everyone goes, not me, not me. We'll tell you all the basics that you have to do, and of course, get you through the safeguarding processes that we've got in place as well. All right, I'll hand you back to James.
It's brilliant. It was really exciting. Yesterday's messy church. I've never been to a messy church, and so being part of that was really exciting. One of the key aspects of the messy church was to have a church member sit at a table and chat to a family whilst they did the messy church bit. So you don't need to know anything about kids, you just need to be mildly pleasant. That's all. And Stefan would sort of unpack some of that. That was really lovely and exciting. So I'm excited about that. So this is the bit where I get to say a thing or two, and it starts off with a thank you. You shouldn't be surprised at that. A number of my sermons have started in that way. So thank you. A thank you to you. A thank you to Janet and Fred for their naivety. You know all those those boring bits in the Bible where you get that list of who begat who begat who begat who. My favourite is, I think it's First Chronicles, the first 13 chapters of First Chronicles. Absolutely dire and dull. Unless it's your name that's in that list. And then you get to go, oh, that's my name. I'm in the Bible. And you get to be excited. So we've got these reports here, and there's loads of names in there. And there's loads of categories even of groups of names in there. And I was really pleased to see some of that. So thank you if your name is in here. And thank you if you're sitting there going, well, my name isn't in there. Because I know that you do a ton of stuff. And so thank you for all of that. The documents that we're looking at, they're almost ancient history as we look at 2019 and we see so far back. But I think they're still good and exciting to see how God has been blessing you through that period. This really is an extraordinary church family, and I wonder if you really understand that. I feel that you undersold yourself to me in all the busyness of what you get on with, how you've adjusted to the peculiarity of this year, how you've kept the church open, how you've kept worship going, how you've kept prayer going, how you've been checking up on each other. I'm really so very impressed at how so many of you have learned to engage in new things, in new ways. I've learned to become a televangelist. There you are, not something covered at theological college, but there you are. And you've learned how to worship from behind a screen. So brilliant, thank you for that. And I'm also very, very thankful to those of you who have managed to keep up the giving with your parish giving scheme. You've heard Stephen talk about how our budget is poor and struggling, and we've got stuff that we need to do and that we want to do. And without your regular giving, that stuff just collapses. One of the reasons why this vacancy, this interregnum, was such a very quick interregnum is because, I realize it's very risky me saying this, not least with a minute taker, but also with the camera. But I'm going to say it anyway because I'm in post, and there's not a lot the bishop can do about it. One of the reasons why this was such a very quick interregnum is because the diocese is in a right mess. They won't tell you that, but they are. They're in a right mess. They're in a right mess financially. And when I say the diocese, I don't mean some bottomless pit of administration. I mean our collective ability to pay for somebody like Dan Jenkins, a diocesan youth worker, when he organizes stuff like May Camp that gathers 400 teenagers from across the different church groups of the diocese for a fabulous weekend of faith and fun. Our collective ability to be able to employ a team of people to help with keeping church schools are focused on what they're doing so that thousands of children can get a fair to middly grasp of what Christianity is actually about and the resources that they provide. This thing, when I say our diocese, I mean our collective ability to be able to pay for a vicar to go somewhere where they could not hope in a while to gather enough money to pay for him or herself to be in that parish. That's what I mean when I say our diocese. We are the diocese. I knew I'd finally made it. Some years back, I had the job of being in charge of readers in this area. And somebody said, problem with you, the diocese, the problem with you, pointing at me. And I went, I've made it! The problem is me, and it's the diocese, and I am the diocese. And I said to him, well, you're kind of right, but you're also wrong, because you are also the diocese. So I take the flattery of you complimenting me by calling me the diocese, but you are also the diocese. I was really impressed at Hazel giving us the reminder of, was it January or February of 2019 when Bishop Richard stood in my previous church? Let's not mention it. And you've got to understand what it's like to have a bishop stand in your church and say, you are too small to have your own vicar. So that's a bit like Bishop Martin coming in here and saying, love what you've done here with the place, but you really can't have James and Derek and Stefan. That's too much. You can't have that. You've got to lose at least two of them. That's what he did in my previous church. You have to understand the sort of pain and hurt and insult that comes from that. Thing is that he's absolutely right. And the only thing that the diocese lacks more than clergy is money. And so that's why it is pivotal that we think about our giving and we realize that what we are doing is we pay, if you're old enough to remember the quota, if you remember the parish share, what we're doing is we do that. That is raw mission money. It's raw mission money. You think of the different missionaries that we sponsor around the world. That parish share is mission money. It pays for me to do mission, Derek to do mission, it pays for Dan Jenkins to do mission, la-di-da. It doesn't pay for the bishop. Different pot of money. And things like that. Does pay for the archdeacon though, but I like him. I'm glad that you've been counting your blessings. I'm glad that you've been learning to say good morning, Lord. I'm glad of all that. But I do recognize, though, I mean, it's all very well for me to come in here and bounce, and I've got a ton of amazingly brilliant ideas, and we will come to those over the while. But I recognize that in coming in here with stuff, there are days when I just feel a little nauseous, and I feel knackered. And it's nothing chemical, don't worry, I'm fine. And it's to do with waking up and saying, well, what is on the news today? And now what's happened? What are the new rules? And trying to accommodate and work out what that means. And how do we now go about our gospel as we do these things? And so I do feel your pain as you wake up and see what is going on in the news. As a result of that, I've started being a little kinder to myself. I've started to discourage 8 o'clock meetings. Never mind, we've still got a few coming up. I'll work on those. And I've started to cut myself a little bit more slack. If I don't get stuff done in the day, I'll get it done tomorrow, instead of beating my head over. And I want to encourage you a little bit in that regard. I've realized that it makes me a little more grumpy and a little more angry when I get all uptight about stuff that can't happen and we can't do this. And so I've discovered when I spot that anger that it makes me humble and it makes me a little bit more forgiving when others are a little bit shorter with me than I might have liked. And I commend that to you as an idea. If you're looking for a prayer for me, one of the prayers would be the gift of names. I am very slowly, you'll notice I stare deeply into your deep blue eyes because that's pretty much all I have to go on. That and your hairline, and that's all I have to work with. So do please help me as I get to know you very slowly. Invite me around for a cup of tea and so on, and we'll try and do things. A number of you have said, new vicar, plenty of changes, let's just change everything because you've got a new vicar. You're not wrong. You're not wrong in that. But the thing is that it turns out that this year has changed everything anyway. When I come and say, let's not do it like this, let's do it like that, you need to not hear it as a criticism of how things were. You need to hear it as a suggestion that I've come at this issue with different questions to what it is that you have lived with. I'm sure there'll be excellent common sense reasons for why it is you've done what it is you've done, but I will be coming at it with different issues and different questions. You have invited me to make this church younger. So instead of actually me taking you through a time machine, I'm going to try and get other people in instead and see if they might be younger. That's going to be my plan. But in order to do that, I'm going to need your help as we work through this. And here's a really big problem. Here's the biggest problem, actually, and this is the moment at which Fred starts to kick Janet and said, I told you so, but you said fine. Here's your biggest problem, is that when you appointed me as your vicar, I was a totally awesome vicar. Really exciting vicar. Totally awesome and exciting vicar. The trouble is that I am a totally awesome and exciting last year vicar. I knew how to vicar last year when everything was, well, what you call normal and what I call the past. I was pretty good at that. I knew how to vicar then. I don't know how to vicar now. And I'm figuring it out and muddling along and making mistakes, and I'm going to step on people's toes, and you're going to learn to forgive me, and we're going to see what does it mean for us to be church now? When I ask you how are things, it's great because you often tell me about things of ancient history. You talk to me about 2018 and the sort of some of the services and the flower festivals and stuff. Can we have a flower festival now? Or perhaps if we did, it would need to be a non-smelly one, I suspect. We have to think afresh about what it means to show the gospel, to live the gospel, to preach the gospel in these times, and it's difficult. And the problem is that I was a totally awesome vicar for the past, and now I need to learn what it means to be a totally awesome vicar for now. That's my challenge, but it's worse for you. You've got to figure out how to change too. And I don't know how you do that. I will be with you as you do that, and I will help you do that. But you've got to work out what it means for you to be a worshipping disciple of Jesus in this time now. You need to not say to me so much, of course, when it all gets back to normal, it's not going back to normal. There will be a new normal. We are now in a new world. The telly is going to be a key part of how we do mission and ministry and prayer from now on. We're not going to go back to a day when we don't have the telly in here and it isn't on your screen. That's not going to be happening. It will always be happening. You will be having masks near your pocket for the rest of our lives, I suspect, in some sense, shape or form. And right now, we're having to knuckle down and work out what it means to do what we do just for 6 months. I'm going to preach about 6 months, maybe next week, and tell you how we're going to do some of that. But just for now, that's what I'm working on. So if you have enjoyed some aspects of the telly stuff, if you have been frustrated by some aspect of our telly stuff, then we need your help. Cough up. We need money to be able to buy a new mixer and get the sound working well. And we need to find ways in which we make it simpler. The key reason why it's suddenly gone from being totally amazing because of what Stefan was doing to not quite so totally amazing in the last why is because we're trying to get Stefan back to the job we paid him to do in the first place, which is young people. In order to get him back doing that, we've had to do what we're doing on a Sunday morning. It's key, it's important, but it's going to cost money to invest so that we get the sound system and stuff right, the telly stuff right for in here. So that's what we're working on for there. You'll be glad to see, you just notice I turned over to another page, and you're going, oh my Lord, he's going on again. But it seems to me that I've said most of that page, so that's probably a good thing. Those of you who are watching at home, and you're thinking, I'm glad I'm not there. Those of you who are thinking, I'm too old for this sort of stuff, I can't do this sort of stuff. Don't worry about it. You are our powerhouse of prayer. This stuff doesn't work with me just being cool and funky and hip. It works by prayer and by you guys being prayer. I'm sure Fred could help me out with a battery torch analogy at this point, that if we get all you people praying together like little batteries, we will shine all the brighter as a church. And I bet there's a technical way of putting that. But that's what you're doing as you pray as a church. So those of you thinking, yeah, this is not really for me, keep praying. Keep doing the pastoral ministry that you are doing and the care that you are doing. Those of you who are sitting there going, I don't like this, I'm not that long in the tooth. Cool. Listen to what Stefan said. Come and help us and be part of what it is that we're doing. This is a new world, and I don't know how to vicar in it, and we don't know how to be a church in it. And that's why we've got to pray, and we've got to try, we've got to make mistakes, and we've got to see what works and see how we go. But for that, we need your prayer, we need you to be giving, and we need you to be proactively part of this worshipping community as you seek God's will for us in this year. That's enough. Amen.
Right, are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to raise at this moment?
You didn't just like to say welcome, but one of the things that I noticed on that list of names up there, right at the bottom of it, is a name called Dorothy Scott. Now, I didn't know Dorothy Scott 9 months ago, 8 months ago, until we were asked to contact Dorothy Scott and see if we could do something for her. We did lots of shopping for Dorothy, and sat next to somebody who we didn't talk to because we didn't know them very well. Now we don't have to talk because we're wearing masks. But we have a tremendous opportunity, James, to build on this social interaction that we have in Seaford through February, March, April, May, June, July, and going on now and another 6 months. Let's not waste that opportunity. Let's help James to take us out into the parish, into Seaford, and make sure that we fill all these seats when we can take the little no-go areas off.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else wish to say anything? No? Right, I've got next here as forthcoming events. Do we have any forthcoming events?
You've got one as well. I've got one. Which one are you on? Okay, I'll do remembrance. Yeah. Okay, just to, as you know, for upcoming November 8th is Remembrance Sunday. Now, normally we would have a service at the War Memorial, well, Remembrance and War Memorial. We'll have a civic service at 11:15 and so on. Of course, none of this is happening this year, sadly. But what James is suggesting we are going to do is we're going to have a 10:30 service here in church on November the 8th, which will be the Remembrance service. And we'll have a Remembrance liturgy, and we'll have a moment of silence at 11 here in church. We'll invite one of the civic community, the mayor hopefully, to represent the town, and the service will be here in church 10:30 until probably 11:30, 12 o'clock. It'll be a communion service. So just to alert you to the fact that Remembrance is going to be very different this year. At St Luke's, we'll still have a 9:30 service, so those people at St Luke's can have a service there with the Remembrance liturgy, and will have time to come, if they want, to join us online at least, to see the Remembrance ceremony here in church. So that's my point. And James, you had something?
It's very short. This coming Friday at about 3:30, 3:45, if you fancy a walk down towards Splash Point, you might find me in the sea baptizing a couple of people. Yes, I know. I know. It's my own stupid fault for suggesting it as an idea. It might not happen. It would not be happening, right now. This is just stupid. So that's why I can't promise you that it will happen. It's not a worship service, so we cannot gather. You may not be part of the 6 that will be entering the water. I'll be part of my 6 bubble with baptism candidates and so on. So if you see us in the water, stay in your own 6 or wherever you are, away from us, and just pray a peace and a blessing upon us. And we're hoping that Stefan will be there. We're hoping that he'll be able to film it, and we'll show it in church the following day. But anyway, so it might not happen. It'll be slightly weather dependent. But if you find yourself for a walk down there around 3:30 mark beyond, then that would be lovely.
Thank you. We're really glad you're doing that, James, and not us.
Holiday Club. You come and do it. You come and do it.
Yes, so upcoming event we have Holiday Club coming up in October at half term, which is for any young person aged 4 up to 11 who are still at primary school. And I know a lot of you have been saving your recyclables for us, so thank you very much. I'm sure you've probably got them stacked up high in some corner of a spare room somewhere. We're currently reviewing where we are at with the Holiday Club in terms of will it still run or will it not run. So we are constantly with our ear to the ground, listening to the news that are coming out, the government advice, so on and so forth. We have got a backup plan if we cannot run, if you deem it's not safe to run the Holiday Club, which will be 3 messy church services. Which will be in the mornings and then one in an afternoon on a Saturday. So do keep your ears out. If you hear any news from us, then that will be the plan if Holiday Club can't take off. But until you hear that news, Holiday Club is still a goer. So keep saving everything. keep praying into the holiday club and all the families and young people that will benefit from that. It'll be great to have your support like that. Thank you.
James has already mentioned a little bit about thanking people. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank people, not a lot of individuals, because not by name. Obviously, I'd like to thank the whole team that have been working to get things online. And I must admit, I was approached about doing a reading, and I ducked out of it because I thought I don't want to hold the phone and try and read at the same time. So I have even greater admiration for all those people who did read online. Well done on all those things. Also, a big thank you for everybody who's done anything about keeping the church open. For the private prayers, we've got an amazing team of people who are signing up for odd sessions, and the list is at the back, and November's is up there now as well, if anyone wants to sign up. Heather has worked her socks off, keeping the church clean and cleaning between people, really worked very hard, and changing her time so she's not here cleaning while the place is open for prayers. Big thank you for that. And just a general thank you for everyone who's just taken on any extra jobs during the last few months. Thank you so much. Without you, we couldn't have done it, and we can't continue to do it. So thank you. And over to Fred now, who is doing some special thanks.
And a chance for some special thanks. Now, you may know a certain person plays the organ. A certain person's organising with Stephanie music for us over the years. In fact, it's more than 10 years, it's more than 20 years. In fact, last year, I think John, it was 30 years. It's 31 now, isn't it? Because we will be coming up 31, so we're a bit late. Bearing in mind this meeting was supposed to be back in April. We'd just like to thank John, our musical director, for being so incredible over the years. What a tremendous person he is, a benefit to us all with the music. And even in this COVID time, we've managed to squeeze in organ playing. And now a little bit of singing is coming back, and you might have noticed that. And it's lovely. I don't know if you managed to see it online, the licensing, the singing at the licensing. The first time we've had singing in the church for so many months. It was wonderful. And just lovely to hear. And we're going to squeeze more of that in. As soon as we're allowed to do more, we'll do more. But John, thank you so much. We'd just like to make a very special thanks to you. And if you'd just like to come up and get a card from us. Now, I believe there's someone who's not here. Hands up, all those people aren't here. Yeah. Kate Steer, up at St. Luke's.
She is watching.
She's watching. Kate. Hi, Kate. Fantastic that you've also done a few years. Of course, it's nowhere near as many as John. Maybe. It's a similar time, I believe. And we have a card for you as well, Kate. So when I get a chance to give it to you, I will. And please, a round of applause for Kate Steer, who does exactly the same at St. Luke's. And thank you to both John and Kate for being online with their music as well. Kate and John both appeared on the telly as the new way forward, as James says. We won't be dropping the Teletubbies, or whatever we call ourselves. I don't know. Whatever we do online, it'll carry on. It's a very, very important way to reach out to people, particularly this time. A lot of people can't join us here in church. I mean, Bob Carrington, who's stepping down as church warden, I've not seen him other than online for 6 months. I did see him through his kitchen window once, I think. But he's isolating because of his sister. You know, there's so many people like Bob that can't come to church. So it's so important that we reach out to people through our music and through our televisual appeal. Thank you so much.
So, any more notices?
Any more notices? One more notice. You're getting bored with this, aren't you? One little point. You may notice the QR code at the door for the NHS track and trace. Very commendable. Please do join and put the app on your phone. But in terms of our management of who's in church, I have to insist that we still register everybody as they come into the church, because it's impossible to manage otherwise. If half of you are on the app and half of you are not on the app, and then we have somebody in 2 weeks that gets the virus, how do I know who was in church? Because the NHS app is anonymous. It doesn't tell me you were here. So I must insist that we carry on registering everybody as they come into church. So it's just a point of order. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you'll be very sad that we are drawing this meeting to a close now. Thank you. I haven't seen anyone drop off. It's quite impressive. There were a few I thought might not manage the whole meeting, but well done you. And if I could ask James just to finish the afternoon in prayer, please.
Just on page 3 of the thing that looks like an annual group reports, you'll see there's this prayer, God of Mission. So those of you who've got one of those, turn to page 3, because we're going to pray it together in a moment. But I'm going to pray it so slowly that you can echo the line back to me, so that you can join in all together as part of this prayer. But I'm going to start off by a little bit of extempore. Heavenly Father, we bless you for 2019. We bless you for the accounts, we bless you for the reports, we bless you for the missions that we've been blessing, we bless you for the ways in which these reports show how you have answered our prayers. You've heard the cry of our hearts, and you have answered our prayers. So we bless you, Lord, for 2019. And we bless you, Lord, for 2020, but that's a little harder to do. So we pray, Lord, that you would show us and help us to count the blessings that you are showing us as we go through this. Go ahead of us, Lord, that we might become the church that you need us to be in this town at this time. So together we pray. So if you'd like to echo this prayer back with me. God of mission, God of mission, who alone brings growth to our church, who alone brings growth to our church, send your Holy Spirit to give. Send your Holy Spirit to give vision to our planning, vision to our planning, wisdom to our actions, wisdom to our actions, power to our witness, power to our witness, and joy to our worship, and joy to our worship. Help your church to grow in numbers. Help your church to grow in numbers, in spiritual commitment to you, in spiritual commitment to you, and in service to our local community, and in service to our local community, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, evermore. Amen. Peace be with you. Bless you for coming. I look forward to learning more about your eyes and your forehead as we go through. But please keep helping me with your names. Thank you. Right?
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Not too bad. That's my fault. We would have finished.
That's all right.